Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Today we're tackling a topic that you've been giving some thought to, and it might not seem like the most uh, glamorous subject at first glance, but trust me, it's got some hidden depths.
Oh, yeah. Definitely more than meets the eye.
We're talking about frugality,
A classic.
and we're going to be using your notes as a springboard for this, going off of your personal definition of living within your means.
Right.
And we're also going to be referencing the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition.
I love a good dictionary definition.
Me too. Sets the stage. And then we're going to get into your personal story because, well, let's just say there's a mysterious Christmas gift involved.
Mysterious is right.
That adds a whole other dimension to this whole thing.
It's an interesting story.
So Merriam-Webster defines frugal as characterized by or reflecting economy in the use of resources. Pretty straightforward, right?
Seems pretty clear.
But I'm curious, when you think about resources, do you automatically jump to money, or is there more to it?
I think immediately we all go to money.
Makes sense.
Like that's the most obvious resource. But I think the idea of frugality can really apply to all sorts of resources. We have time, right?
Of course.
Time is a huge one. Our energy is a resource. Our attention even. Like these are all things that we can be mindful of. And I think the principles of frugality can apply to all of them.
I love how you're connecting it to like our mental resources.
Totally.
Because I feel like that's something we don't often consider.
Yeah, I think it's easy to think of frugality as just like pinching pennies,
Right.
but it's so much broader than that.
So then taking that into account, your personal definition of frugality is living within your means. And you talked a lot about the difference between needs and wants, which kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is that you said that your frugal lifestyle actually shaped your hobbies and what you actually enjoy.
Absolutely.
How did that happen?
Well, I think, when you are focused on being frugal, you have to make choices. And sometimes those choices mean that you can't just go out and buy whatever new gadget or whatever you want or, go on a lavish vacation.
Right, right.
So you have to get creative and you have to think about what you really enjoy and what brings you joy that maybe doesn't cost a lot of money. So for me, that meant, really getting into hiking.
Right. So you rediscover the simple things.
Exactly. Spending time in nature, cooking at home. Like these are all things that, they don't have to cost a lot of money, but they can be incredibly rewarding and enriching.
And then it kind of circles back to being frugal with your time too.
Exactly.
Because you're making that conscious choice to spend your time doing things that are fulfilling without necessarily spending a lot of money.
And that, feeds back into your well-being and your, mental state.
I think it's a really important point because it's easy to think that frugality means you're depriving yourself, but you're showing that it can actually lead you towards things that are more genuinely fulfilling.
Exactly. It's not about deprivation. It's about making conscious choices that align with your values. And I think that's where the whole concept of needs versus wants comes in.
Right, because it forces you to confront okay, what do I really need?
Yeah. And what am I just getting sucked into wanting because of, societal pressure or marketing or whatever it is.
It's so easy to get caught up in that. Speaking of making choices, I have to bring up this micro studio you were telling me about. 225 square feet for $500 a month.
Oh my gosh.
That's some serious commitment to a minimalist lifestyle.
It was an experience, that's for sure.
I mean, house centipedes aside.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Okay, we won't dwell on the creepy crawlies.
But,
yeah. Reading your notes, it's clear that you were laser focused on your goal of saving for a home.
Yeah. It was all about the bigger picture.
And that tiny, maybe slightly buggy apartment was like a stepping stone.
Exactly. And that's what made it bearable, knowing that I was working towards something bigger.
See, that's what I find fascinating because every choice has its trade-offs, right? But having that clear why seems crucial.
Totally. Otherwise, it's just sacrifice for the sake of sacrifice.
And it can start to feel meaningless, even resentful maybe.
Right. You have to know what you're working towards.
And that brings us to another gem from your notes that I wanted to unpack.
Hit me with it.
You said, if it has potential intrinsic value, then it's worth spending the money. What does intrinsic value mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, intrinsic value is about looking beyond that initial, excitement of buying something new.
Right, the instant gratification.
Yeah, exactly. And thinking about what long-term benefits it might bring. Does it contribute to my personal growth? Will it bring me knowledge? Does it, help me build lasting memories or experiences?
It's like investing in your future self almost.
Exactly. And that's a very frugal mindset, I think.
Because you're not just thinking about what you're getting in this moment.
Right.
You're thinking about the long-term impact of that choice.
It's like, okay, am I going to spend $50 on like a fancy meal that I'm going to enjoy for an hour?
Right.
Or am I going to spend that $50 on a book or a course that's going to teach me something new and potentially benefit me for years to come?
See, that's the kind of thinking that really challenges the stereotype of frugality as being cheap.
Totally. It's about being strategic.
Because, you're thinking about the value that you're getting from your spending.
And it could be, like you mentioned, knowledge, right? Or experiences. It doesn't have to be a material thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
When I think about experiences that have intrinsic value, it makes me think of that story you told about the Christmas gift.
Oh, yeah.
So just to recap for everyone listening, you mentioned that it was a tough Christmas.
It was a lean year for sure.
And then, out of the blue, there was a surprise Santa visit.
We were completely taken aback.
And what really stood out to me was that the gift itself, a wooden maze and a Chinese checker set, wasn't extravagant, but it stuck with you. Why is that?
Yeah, it wasn't about the gift itself. It was about what it represented.
What did it represent to you?
You know, someone in our community recognized that we were struggling and they wanted to do something to help,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't, a big flashy present.
It was about the thought behind it,
Exactly. It showed me the power of community and resourcefulness.
and that even small gestures can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It made us feel seen and cared for, even when things were tough.
It's really heartwarming. And, it's making me wonder if we can almost consider that act of giving a form of frugality in itself,
Interesting.
because it's about making the most of what you have, sharing resources.
I actually think there's a really strong argument for that. Frugality isn't just about individual choices. It can be a community value.
A shared way of life.
Exactly. It's about supporting each other, looking out for one another, and making sure everyone has what they need.
Which I think is a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering, it's not always easy to live by these principles, especially when, you're surrounded by people who might not understand or even judge your choices.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been there.
And you mentioned in your notes that you've been judged for being frugal. You gave the example of ordering water at a restaurant. How do you deal with those situations?
It used to bother me a lot more than it does now. Like early on, I felt like I had to justify myself.
Oh, I totally get that.
Oh, I'm just watching my spending, or I'm not that thirsty. But over time, I've realized that staying true to my values is more important than what other people think.
So you learn to just own it.
Like pretty much.
Yeah.
And, it helps that I'm also pretty health conscious. So ordering water is a win-win for me.
So it aligns with your other goals.
Exactly.
I think it's fantastic that you're able to connect those choices back to your overall well-being, because it shows that frugality isn't about punishing yourself. It's about making choices that support who you want to be.
100%. And that's a really empowering way to think about it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into frugality, it seems like we've uncovered so much more than just saving money. It's about being intentional, aligning your actions with your values, and even recognizing that sense of community.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach to life.
It really makes you think. We talked about being frugal with money and time, but what about other resources, like our energy, our attention, even our emotions?
Never thought about it that way.
Right. Could applying those same principles lead to a richer, more fulfilling life overall? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.